We're going to take a look at Notre Dame's 2025 roster today, as well as recent recruitment develops, and speculate on how we think that this roster is built for sustained long-term growth. We're going to touch on how we think they'll be this upcoming season, but the focus is going to be on guys that will be on this roster in 2026. So we're going to have to touch on how we think they'll be in 2025 to do that, and there's going to be a lot of assumptions made regarding who we think is going to be in the NFL, who I think could redshirt. If you think I'm off base with anything, feel free to let me know. But with that being said, enjoy the video. We're going to start up front with this offensive line, but just a quick note on the color scheme I'm using. Blues are NFL draft risks, not guys I necessarily think will be in the NFL, just have a good shot as of right now. There's some guys I didn't give this grade to that with a good season could be at the next level, but these are just, as of this recording, I think have a good shot right as of this point. Purples are 4 stars, pinks are 5 stars. These aren't a strict 24/7 grade, just guys that I upgraded a lot of guys that I like. So don't look at it and tell me, oh, this guy's actually a 4-star, actually a 5-star. This is not a strict grade. Anyways, moving on to how I think this offensive line will be in 2026. It's going to be interesting to see exactly who's back on this roster right now. The first 5 names listed are all listed as starters at this point. Emil Wagner, Ashton Craig, Billy Schraith, Anthony Knapp, and Charles Wagsay. I think the seniors all have a very good shot to be in the NFL. They've played at this point, and they've played well. Specifically, I'd be pretty surprised if Emil Wagner is back on this roster in 2026. Just because I think the NFL interest is going to be so high. But, he is an underclassman, does have a shot to be back. Same deal with Ashton Craig, Billy Schraith, all guys that have played and played well. If we're going to assume that all 3 are gone, it's a tough thing to replace 2 starters. But you look at how well Notre Dame's recruited offensive line-wise, this is a position that no matter who's going to be going into the draft, if they had 5 guys getting drafted into the NFL in 2026, Notre Dame's offensive line is one of those position groups. I don't worry about Ohio State receivers. I don't worry about LSU defensive backs historically. I don't worry about the Notre Dame offensive line. They've recruited so well up front. 2025, very good recruiting cycle, bringing in both Will Black and Owen Stree, big guys that are very talented. And then even this 2026, guys that aren't on the roster yet. They've recruited the hell out of the offensive line, both quantity and quality guys. So they're going to have a lot of young guys on this roster in 26, just looking at it. This is a lot of names right here. It looks like they're assuming that they're going to be losing a couple upperclassmen, either to the draft or the transfer portal, but that's college football, nowadays. But if all 3 of these guys come back, this is going to be, again, one of the best offensive linemen. Somehow their offensive line, they're going to get even better in 2026. But I think realistically, you'd expect Wagner to leave, and then I think one of Craig or Schraith back. I think it's pretty unrealistic to expect all 3 back, and I'd say you're more likely going to get 1 or 2 rather than all 3 gone or all 3 back. But we'll see how Knapp and Jagsay are this upcoming season, and then a lot of very talented underclassmen. Certainly a good spot to be in up front for Notre Dame right now. Looking at the quarterback room now, this is kind of a difficult one for me to talk about how good they'll be in 26 when I don't really know how good they'll be in 25. CJ Carr is definitely an unproven quantity. I think this dude has all the talent in the world and really like what he brings athletically to the field. And I just don't know yet. I got to see this dude play some college football before I could tell you that I feel good about CJ Carr as the starter long term. But, going into this upcoming offseason, I certainly think you'll have a good understanding. He's also only a redshirt freshman, so we're going to give him a little grace this upcoming season. I more just want to see the flashes of the upside consistently. And, we'll live with some of the rookie mistakes because I'll talk about it at the end of the video. But I think they're in a good spot to this upcoming season to have some subpar quarterback play, some redshirt freshman play this upcoming season. But going into 2026 might not be the same situation. And, they've recruited pretty well. Hebert from Delaware, I remember watching him last cycle, pretty talented. Noah Grubb from Florida. They're going all over for some of these quarterbacks. And even this upcoming kid that might commit tomorrow, Gerard from Georgia. All very talented quarterbacks. But, right now, in 2026, they have a redshirt sophomore, guy that could be the starter for 4 years. So we'll see how that goes this upcoming season. And then it'll be interesting to follow CJ Carr's development because, to me, that's the guy long-term in this quarterback room. The most talented. And he's going to get thrown to the fire this year. It's going to be a bit of a baptism by fire, I think. But we'll see how he handles it. And I think this offseason we'll have a better understanding of who CJ Carr is. And then in the meantime, keep recruiting, keep developing guys behind him. So it's kind of an interesting conversation to have now about Angeli transferring because I think in 2025 this quarterback room would have been better with him, and you could have kind of eased CJ Carr into the starting role. But I got to tell you, these quarterback reps that CJ Carr is going to be getting in a live game situation are so invaluable going down the road, because there's some things that you just cannot simulate in practice. Having an actual pass rush coming in your face. I got to tell you, man, watching any high school recruit, one of the biggest things that they don't really have a great grasp yet is really pocket manipulation. And that's one of those things you can't really just pick up in practice when guys aren't actually trying to take your head off. So you might see a lot of growing pains this upcoming season with CJ Carr, but I say this a lot. There's two aspects of growing pains, right? The first, there's the pain, and then there's the growth. I think long term, you're getting a lot of reps for your talented young quarterback. I think that's objectively a good thing. Taking a look at the running back room, they're not graduating anybody in 2026 is going to contribute that much this upcoming season, but I think Love and Price are two guys that have NFL futures. They both definitely have NFL futures. Conversation's a bit more, is it going to be in 2026 or 2027? For Jeremiah Love, I think it's 26. I think Price has a good shot to be on this roster next year. I'd say it's a coin flip right now. Definitely very talented. We'll see. We'll see. We're going to, as we always do, we always play worst case scenarios. We're just going to assume they're both in the NFL this time next year, which, might prove wrong, but we'll see. How do I feel about Anais Williams as a lead back? I don't think he is a lead back. I think this is a guy that's a perfect complement, very good receiving skill set, just not a guy that I think will ever lead Notre Dame in rushing yards in a given season. I don't feel the same way about Kendron Young. I think Kendron Young is a guy that I feel very good about giving a steady diet of carries, and I think that's what you'll see in 2026 if Price and Love are gone. I have notes on a good deal of these players, and Kendron Young, I wrote 235 ? He doesn't move like it. Definitely doesn't move like he's 235, but really like his frame and then what he brings athletically. Just a good back, I think. Javion Osborne, Jonas Walton, really love these two guys. I really think they complement each other's skill sets pretty well. I said this when they both committed because it was kind of within 2 weeks, if I remember right. Osborne's a bit closer to what Jeremiah Love brings athletically. Jonas Walton's a bit closer to Jadarian Price and what he brings physically. But we'll see how they develop, but two guys I feel very good about. Osborne's such a good athlete. Walton doesn't move as well as Javion Osborne, but I got to tell you, I like Walton's one of my favorite running backs in this 26 class because of how big his lower body is, the physicality he runs with. A guy that certainly isn't afraid to stick his nose in the muck and pass protect. You watch his highlights, he's such a good runner, but some of the best highlights are him in pass protection. Just a running back's running back, I think, with Jonas Walton and then Javion Osborne. Absolutely love the athletic upside. So in 2026, this running back room, I think it's going to hinge a lot on who's exactly back in this room. And I don't feel good about Love being back on this roster. But if Price is back, it'll be a great room. If Price is gone, it'll still be a very good room, to be honest. Just so much talent. But it's kind of crazy to think that even if Love and Price both aren't back on this roster in 26, the running back room's still pretty talented. To lose two guys like that and still have a good level of talent in the room, I think that's pretty awesome, to be honest. And we'll see how they are going forward. They've recruited so well. It's kind of hard for me to say anything bad about this running back room at 25, 26, or 27. But we'll see how it goes going forward. Feel good about it right now. Moving on to the receiver room, there's not a whole lot graduating. Everybody that is either transferred in or transferred positions in the past year. So I'm not really worried about losing Pauling, Buckner, or Fields long term. That's how you use the transfer portal, is you develop guys like Greathouse, Faison, and then you kind of band-aid any holes that you end up missing for whatever reason. So I think they're in a good spot. I don't even think they have to take any transfers if they do get Jaden Greathouse, Jordan Faison, all back. Two guys that I think will have NFL futures down the line. I just think that production-wise, I don't think the numbers were there for me to worry about them in 2026 right now. So I think with good seasons, these are two guys that could be in the NFL next year. But for now, we're gonna pencil him in on this roster next year. How's the young talent on this roster? I absolutely love it, man. Elijah Burris, I'm surprised this guy's already listed on the 2 deep. That's why I don't have him redshirting this upcoming season. But I'm really not that surprised. I just thought there was a lot physically that had to be done, but him as an athlete and really more him as just a receiver. You can see the NFL bloodline with him. Just such a good route runner, really such a nuanced route runner. A lot of these guys that we watch in high school are really good athletes, very good change of direction ability, and you see that with the ball in their hands. It just doesn't really translate to route running yet. Not the case with Elijah Burris, just a separator. Cam Williams, now he's a very good complement physically. A guy that I think he was a 5-star, and watching him, he's a 5-star talent for sure. I can't believe he's only listed at 6'2". I think he's a bit more physically imposing than just 6'2". Maybe it's the arm length. I don't know what it is, but kind of surprised to see him listed at just that. So Finley's another guy I like. I posted him on my channel, and somebody said he's like a copy-paste Jaden Greathouse. I didn't really see it at first when I first watched Finley, but then after the fact, I can't see it. What do I like about Finley? 6 foot, really like his rack ability, but also a developed receiver. Now, looking at Braden Robinson, who's also committed in this 26 class, I don't think he's there as a receiver yet, but what you're getting athletically is just so exciting. He's 5'8", so the cards are kind of stacked against him. But, early on in his career, there's no doubt he's going to be a very effective gadget type receiver. And then going forward, maybe we can turn him into a bit more of a slot receiver as we work on, him developing physically. It's just so tough at his frame. But, talent-wise, athletically, absolutely love what Braden Robinson brings to the field. Watched a little bit of Devin Fitzgerald, didn't get too deep into the film, but another guy, there's so much NFL lineage in this receiver room. I don't think I've ever seen it where you have 3 sons of NFL players, Elijah Burris being Plaxico Burris' son, Devin Fitzgerald, son of Larry Fitzgerald, and then Jerome Bettis, try to guess who's the son of Jerome Bettis Jr., I should say. So very interesting to have that kind of NFL lineage. And I didn't watch Jerome Bettis Jr., but Devin Fitzgerald's another guy that I don't necessarily think is going to set the world on fire athletically, but just a solid route runner. It's kind of hard to not be when you're coming from Larry Fitzgerald's lineage. But yeah, I feel really good about this receiver room. They are graduating 3 names, or at least 2 names that are probably going to contribute a lot this upcoming season, but I don't really think they have to be aggressive in the transfer portal, to be honest. There's a lot of talent that hasn't played yet. They've been waiting in the wings, and I think 26 is where you start leaning on some of these younger names like Burris, Cam Williams, 2 guys I think deserve to see the field pretty early in their careers, and then a lot of developmental guys that down the road can really contribute. But as far as 26 is concerned, if you do get Greathouse and Faison back, I feel absolutely great about this receiving room. Even if you lose both of them, I think that's where you start feeling like you have to kind of press the transfer portal to bring in some more experienced names. But if they're both back, I feel great about it. We're going to round out here with the tight end room, and I think a bit earlier I said something about the offensive line where I was like, regardless of who's leaving, I'm never going to worry about the Notre Dame offensive line because of the track record they have of developing guys, finding guys. Same deal with the tight end room. I'm not going to come on here and say, Kevin Bauman's been on this roster for 6-7 years. Eli Raridan's played a lot. Yeah, they're losing some experience, but they've developed guys, Garrity Flanagan, Jack Larson, all guys you could expect to contribute in 2026. Couldn't really find that much film of Larson or Flanagan, not Flanagan. Flanagan, I couldn't find that much film of, but from what I could tell, moved pretty well for his size. Ian Premer's a guy I'm also pretty excited for. He's committed in this 26 class. This is a great name to bring in as your best tight end in this 26 class. I think you're going to expect a lot of him down the line. Very good athlete is what I'll say about Ian Premer, but yeah, just never going to worry about this Notre Dame tight end room. Just giving my final thoughts on this Notre Dame offense going forward. I definitely like it. They definitely objectively have a lot of talent in every position room. Now, the real life story is I think you're going to get a lot of growing pains in 25 with CJ Carr. It sucks that Angeli left, and there's not a lot of experience in this quarterback room. Now, they have the offensive line, and they're going to have the running game to kind of mitigate that. I don't think CJ Carr has to be all that effective in 2025 just because of how good Jeremiah Love is. One of the best running back prospects, in recent memory going into the NFL. I don't think you can expect him to be back in 2026. Jadarian Price also, about as good as a second running back's going to get ever, to be honest. This guy would be the top dog at most places. Up in the air whether he's back in 2026. I think he'll be back. So I don't think CJ Carr has to be all that effective for Notre Dame to have a very good offense in 2025. I think 2026 is going to be a bit of a different story just because there's going to be a lot of offensive linemen, I think, going to the NFL. Even just losing Emil Wagner just makes the offensive line not better going into 26. I think Jeremiah Love's going to be in the NFL. Jadarian Price, like I said, up in the air. So I don't think this running game will be as effective in 26. I think 26 is where you ask CJ Carr to kind of take those steps. I think in 2025, you're going to see a lot of him handing the ball off in 2025, and you're going to see a lot of him using his legs because I think he's very. You have to take advantage of CJ Carr's athleticism, especially when he's a younger quarterback in 25. I think you're going to ask him a lot in the 26 offseason to mature as a passer, and I think that's where you start seeing them take more advantage of the talent in the receiver room and CJ Carr's upside as a passer. So that's where I see this offensive going. But you guys let me know what you think about Notre Dame's offense. If I was off base with anything, feel free to let me know. A lot of these underclassmen, a lot of the freshmen that are committed, I've watched on my channel. Two of the running backs I definitely watched. Two of the receivers I've watched as well. And then a lot of guys on the defensive side of the ball as well are up on my channel. So I'd really appreciate it if you guys check those guys out. Again, let me know what you think. If I'm off base with anything, I like having these conversations. And really the point of these videos aren't for me to come on here and tell Notre Dame fans what's what. It's more for me to give my opinion and then hear the feedback. And I think that's kind of how I learn more about college football. But thanks for watching.